I've been looking at VR companies since the mid-90s, literally, and technology's come a long way. It's an incredible experience, and it is absolutely the future. And our jobs as VCs is to figure out when is the right time to invest in the cycle. What you don't want to do in any cycle is to invest a little bit too early, even 2 to 3 years too early, because the amount of money it takes to build a team, to put out a product, you can lose that in a very short amount of time, and then if you lost your investment. So I'm waiting for the right time when that cycle hits. I feel like we're maybe 2 years away, maybe 3, from investing in publishers and developers in the category from a VC perspective. But who's to know?
Is it and would your first investments be tools, that kind of thing, or would it be content?
I think it'd be content. I mean, you asked what I'm most interested in. I like IP-based content publishers, and we made a number of investments in that category. Telltale Games is one that I've been on the board for the last 8 years, and they published Game of Thrones, Walking Dead. So Minecraft Story Mode is coming out tomorrow, which is going to be a huge game on all platforms. And Minecraft is one of the most popular IPs in history. And Telltale knows how to make great games. It's going to be really exciting. Next Games, another company where I'm on the board, is based in Helsinki. They came out with AMC's The Walking Dead No Man's Land last Thursday. It's number 1 in the App Store today on iPad and iPhone, and it's really fun and exciting. Walking Dead is the top title on television today. These games market themselves, really solve the CPI issue in many senses, and it's what people want. They want to play. So I like finding publishers who know how to make great games out of great IP. To me, that's a low-hanging fruit in our category.
Yeah, I think in addition to AR and VR, which I've been incredibly impressed in how rapidly things have progressed. I remember when Jason Rubin and I went to see Oculus when they had just released DK1, and my sort of takeaway was, great, this is really early. I spent half an hour playing Half-Life. I spent 6.5 hours lying in bed, completely nauseated, and said, I kind of see it, but I'm one of the least motion-sensitive people that I know. If I can't handle this experience, even playing Half-Life at pretty slow pace, this is probably a long way from mainstream. And then sort of fast-forwarding 9 months ahead, where they solved the bulk of those problems. The other thing that we're doing that's, I think, sort of atraditional, or not traditional, we've tended to invest in certain cases directly in content. So we're looking at what I'd call formats rights opportunities. Not sort of just standard localization of games or television or movies where you kind of take it from the US to Asia, but actually looking at the concept and saying, does the concept of Game of Thrones, for lack of a better example, work, but we want to do a localized version for this region with Thai actors, a Thai-focused storyline that maybe ties into something that's going to be much more accessible to that audience. So we've actually looked at remakes, and we've just done one deal, which we haven't announced, which I'm pretty excited about, in the kind of remaking something that worked well in the US and then going to completely change it, probably 90 degrees almost, to make it work in another market.
And Sonny, you were nodding when I mentioned tools versus content. Comment there?
So I think that's actually a pretty good hedge around how long the VR community takes to really kick off, because direct-to-consumer monetization models are a ways off. Spending $1,000 on an Oculus-ready PC is still, a ways off for the majority of the world to go about. I do think that content creation tools in the early days of a new platform are a pretty good bet when there's a lot of content funding right now coming out of Oculus, from Sony, from HTC, and from some of the other headset makers. I think that investing in tools right now, as a lot of the content that's out there will get burned through pretty quickly. I think the Jaunt Disney deal that recently happened is getting more capital to kind of scale up production and put out more of these 4, 5, 7-minute mobile-first experiences. Content creation tools, for example, there's one that we haven't announced yet, but that works within being able to create better light field technology, being able to create content that looks more realistic, more photorealistic, more immersive. investing in these kind of tools at the beginning, as there's a surge in demand for
Right.
content on these new platforms, these kind of tools are going to become pretty
I guess
pervasive.
that hedges bets too. Take it to training, take it to just visual experiences outside of the game community as well. I mean, I went through, everybody's probably done all the demos, but the last HTC Valve demo I went through is I would not step off that bridge, even though it's easy to, go ahead, step off the bridge. But I don't like heights anyway. There's no way I'm going to do that. And
Yeah, most people can't do it, I think.
Oh yeah, and mentally, immediately I go to, I don't really want to go to Cairo right now, but would I want to, go VR-wise? It'd be great. Okay. Anything else? I always like to we've got 2 minutes here, and maybe it's just my own voyeuristic sort of look at things, but I have a friend that's a VC up in Seattle, and he loves his cocktail stories about how he missed Jeff's pitch with Amazon, and he goes, yeah, he'll sell a few books, but he's talking about owning the sort of retail environment everywhere, plus technology, and he's crazy, and he did the same thing with Starbucks, and so I always like to, and he doesn't care, he's hit other places, but I always like to ask, because I'm curious, what have you missed, and why do you think you missed it, and is there any lessons in that, if you're willing to share?
I don't think 2 minutes could cover
Exactly.
That's too
the amount of
many.
things that I look back in
Anti-portfolio?
hindsight that seem so obvious.
Yeah.
I know. I would add, though, that you talk about VR as a new category. I think something I would encourage people to really focus on is cloud gaming, which I think is happening in the next 2 to 3 years. I think that Apple TV will replace the Xbox and Sony PlayStation in the living room. I'm really excited about it in general. I think we've got a little ways to go technology-wise, just like we have a little ways to go in VR. But those are two categories I'm really looking forward to, and we'll be definitely making investments in.
Great. Well, thank you very much.
All right.
Hello, everybody. I'd like to invite Nicolo Damasi, CEO of Glue Mobile, out. This is our first fireside chat here. All righty. So I thought you were bringing Kim with you.
I thought that I didn't need to at this point. I mean,
So thank you for coming to talk about the celebrity strategy. And I think for many people, they had probably never heard of Glue Mobile until Kim Kardashian Hollywood came out. So can you maybe tell us some history of everything that went on before that?
well, congratulations for all of you making it to the most exciting panel of the day. I'm going to do my best to keep this interesting. For those who haven't heard the story, and it's probably been recited a few times on broadcast TV, I approached Kim in actually early 13 about the prospect of working with her and taking her IP and brand power and social power and effectively infusing that with a game engine that we had proven out as already being successful around the concept of fame. We had a game called Stardom the A-List and Stardom Hollywood, which we'd put out in 2011 and 2012. And I suspected that there'd be possibly a great marriage between her strengths and ours in monetizing effectively her social audience through gaming. And so we began collaborating in about the middle of 2013. Game came out in 2014, and obviously it's become a cultural phenomenon because I believe we've created a new category of interactive entertainment in a lot of ways. It's a living and breathing game that is based around a person coaching you from effectively D-list to A-list. And ultimately, unlike all other IP that typically comes from the movie space, the book space, this is something that is active and alive. And that's been a big component of how we make this game successful, by twisting up the virtual and the physical world every chance we get, every update we get. We try and follow her around the world. We try and keep it current with what's happening in her life. And it makes players feel closer to her. Instead of having to wait for Sunday night to see the show, you can interact with Kim's world 6 times a day. 5 times a day is 5 or 6 times a day for 5 or 6 minutes a day is about the average player experience that we find. There's obviously a big roadmap of celebrity games that Glue is building, and that's probably what Dean wants to talk about for the rest of this session. But Kim and I have been the innovator for this category, and we think it's very much here to stay.
So how many games did you have before that, like in the portfolio? I mean, it was a portfolio strategy, right? And has it sort of morphed into having more emphasis on this one game, one category then?
So Glue's been going since 2001. We've been public since March of 7. We build about a dozen games a year. We are always believers that sort of betting it on 2 or 3 games a year is probably a little risky. And so we've been bouncing around the double digits, low double digits for the last 5 years. A lot of our games, Dean, used to actually be very male, very shooter. Gun Bros, Contract Killer, Frontline Commando, Deer Hunter, Racing Rivals. This is where the bulk of our revenues were prior to the Kardashian game coming out. In a lot of ways, the Kim game is taking the best of both worlds. So we are merging some of the best, let's say, more hardcore game mechanics with a very broad audience. And her social following, obviously, is very tech-savvy. It's very mobile forward, and it translates quite well over to mobile gaming engagement. Into the future, yes, we've signed deals with, I've announced 650 million celebrity social followers that we have now signed partnerships with. I said on our Analyst Day,
that's an interesting stat where I guess it sort of distinguishes your celebrities, I guess, from some of the other companies that are competing and copying now are signing up, I guess.
Yeah, well, we're signing the biggest one, Zine. So, if you want a chance at a $100 million, plus celebrity game, we feel that we're the premier partner. And so people like Katy Perry, Nicki Minaj, Britney Spears, Kylie and Kendall Jenner, all of them are signed up to the Glue pipeline. And Jason Statham's our first male partner. So the game mechanics will vary, right? That's not going to be all the same, call it narrative RPG engine. The Jason Statham game is obviously going to be a shooter. But ultimately, what we think is unique about our approach is we're turning around the 10-cent philosophy of take big social audience and social networking service and build games on top of it. We're trying to build social following for our games by partnering with people that have it already. And with that, Glue is endeavoring to build a longer-term, call it annuity pipeline of not only partnerships, but revenue streams. Gaming, I think, is the most effective way of monetizing social following typically. And what we're trying to prove is that if we can get to 1 billion social followers or more through long-term 5-year partnerships, we can be a unique asset in the game space, which is something that does have a predictable portfolio of revenues that come for many years and a contractual barrier to entry around it.
So how broad and deep do you think this celebrity category is? We saw League of Legends come out, and all of a sudden the MOBA category was established, but there's a handful of titles that are successfully competing in that category now.
Yeah, one of those big questions for our whole sector, right, is it a winner-take-all category? Is it one where multiple titles can succeed at the same time? I actually believe that it will prove out to be not a winner-take-all category. Certainly it'll be a winner-takes-more category, but when you stand back and look at the concept of people and fame, personalization of the media space, you can see it in all categories. Whether you're in the sports space, you're a TV actor, you're a reality star, musician, everybody's creating a personal brand, and fame is one of the oldest ideas around. And I'm sure it'll be around for the next 100,000 years as well. So to me, it's really about trying to drill into the unique brand affinity and the unique mechanics that will allow multiple games to sit alongside each other and not cannibalize and compete directly.
So if you look at the top 3 grossing games on the app stores, you find they have a lot fewer games, and I wonder how long that situation is going to last. And does it sort of make you consider the strategy in a different way in terms of doing a portfolio of games, like having a bunch of games?
So we're leaning into the celebrity pipeline largely because of this suppression of, let's say, installs in the top free charts that we've seen in the last year. There are some people that can spend a lot of money effectively acquiring users, to use our favorite vernacular, paid marketing spend. You've seen, in some ways, fewer games in the top 100 free apps than any time the past 5 years, certainly the Apple charts. Some of that might be that we are not surprising and delighting audiences to the same extent as we once did. Some of it is due to the people that can spend large amounts of money on high LTV installers and so on. One of the reasons why we like the celebrity partnerships so that we get effectively a permanent marketing asset. So unlike a movie IP where there isn't really much social following, if you partner with someone who has 100 million social followers, you have effectively inbuilt promotion. And so I'm expecting that we'll be able to see all of our celebrity games do well in the top free, do better than games would otherwise.
Mm-hmm. So you just launched James Bond, World of Espionage. What's the thinking there, and how does it sort of compare or contrast with Kim Kardashian?
Quite a contrast. So I think that game has been 2 years in the making. It was actually done at the same time as our Terminator or Mission Impossible deals, as well as the Kim Kardashian game. So think back to late 12, early 13. And a lot of thought went into these movie partnerships. The Kim partnership was an experiment for Glue, along with our movie partnerships, to take a tried and tested game engine and ultimately find a way to increase reach, right? Drive more installs, hopefully get some uptick in conversions, maybe even retention via the brand affinity IP. What we've seen pretty clearly in 3 movie titles as well as the Kim game is that there's a lot better affinity between a living, breathing person with an inbuilt digital promotion mechanism than there is with even the world's most successful movie franchise. So I think our conclusion from that whole portfolio strategy has been, celebrity is more effective than movie IP, generally speaking. And you'll see us, lean accordingly into the roadmap the next couple of years.
Mm-hmm. How do you also balance, I guess, the financials here between, the IP owners and yourselves?
Well, we balance them by trying to give them as little of the pie as possible, right? But the reality is, you want an incented partner, right? So we haven't disclosed exact, royalty shares with Kim or any of our partners. But if you look at our quarterly results, you can see that we're paying 10, 11, 12% of our revenues in royalties every quarter, something like that, around about the 10% number. Mm-hmm. And you can work out how much of our game portfolio is branded versus original IP. We own the Deer Hunter IP. We acquired that. We own the Diner Dash IP. We don't pay royalties on this. So, Kim's making up a big chunk of that. And you can kind of see an imputed royalty rate, which is, a modest but significant minority, right? Mm-hmm. And so having a partner who, if we're successful, can be effectively, see a third, maybe a third, or where the top 3 income streams come from a game, makes for a very different dynamic than, say, a film whereby, you could make $1 billion at the box office. Unless the game makes half that, the prioritization is not there. For Kim, we're a top 2, top 3 income stream if we're successful. And I very much hope the same thing will be the case with our musician partners, who, of course, have seen paid music, physical music decline. They're now, Katy Perry's making her money now on performance and merchandising, sponsorship. Gaming can be on the podium in our top 3 if we're successful.
Interesting. So James Bond games went through their cycle, and at the beginning of shooters, like with GoldenEye, 007, they were very brilliant games, I guess. But they also ran out of gas at some point, and I wonder how you keep gamers interested in these branded games, celebrity games.
I think that's right. Surprise and delight was one of the things I mentioned a few minutes ago as something that possibly our industry needs to push forward a little farther. Unless Apple has changed their top free algorithm, you see dramatically fewer games in the top free apps this year than you did even last year, and certainly fewer than you had 3 or 4 years ago. Part of that might be consumers are spending more time on social messaging, social networking apps. Part of it might be that we're not doing a good enough job as an industry at finding something that's innovative that punches through.